1, 2, 3. Oh! Hey Sugar Geeks, Liz here. Today we're gonna be learning how to make traditional cinnamon candied apples. Surprisingly delicious and actually quite easy to make. It's all coming up next on the Sugar Geek Show. So the first thing we wanna do is prep our apples, hopefully the day before. I know most of you are watching this video and you're just like, I'm watching this video because I wanted to make candy apples now. Okay, listen, you can do them now, but I'm just saying, best practices say prep your apples the day before, okay? So we're going to wash them in super, super hot water. I recommend using boiling water or like simmering water, don't burn your hands. Because all apples come with like a waxy coating and you need to get that wax off. Otherwise your candy is gonna slide down your apples. And then we're gonna dry them real good and put them into the fridge overnight. See, that's the overnight part, because cold apples make for better candy apples. The cold apple hits the hot sugar, solidifies it on there, and then you have like a really thin coating instead of a super thick coating. So just keep them in the fridge as long as you can before you start cooking your sugar. What type of apples should you use, Liz? Oh, I'm glad you asked. We're using Granny Smith apples, which are the classic flavor. So you got that tart apple mixed with the super sweet, sugar, and this is a match made in heaven. Heaven? It's a match made in heaven. You can use any kind of apple though. Before we start making our candy apples, you wanna get your station ready, okay? So we wanna have a silicone mat, or you could use parchment paper, or you could use aluminum foil with some oil rubbed on it if you don't have any silicone, but silicone mat's gonna work best. And I know a lot of you guys are not gonna like this, but use a candy thermometer. Can you not use a candy thermometer? Yes, you could do the old school test where you take a little bit of your boiling sugar, drop it into a cup, squeeze it with your fingers, test to see if it's softball, medium crack, or hard crack. Honestly, that is harder than just using a thermometer. This goes up to 400 degrees, technically. Not the same as like a thermometer that you like check your meats and stuff in, because this has to just sit in the sugar. And we have some ice water. When you're a beginner, it's important to take precautions. And you'll be like, I don't need precautions. Trust me, you wanna have precautions instead of blisters. Hand goes directly into the water. That immediately solidifies the sugar, and then you don't get a burn, okay? If you get a drip on your finger, you wipe it off with a towel, that hot sugar is still on your skin. I'm also gonna wear gloves. That's the second layer protection. These are just nitrile gloves. That's probably enough protection, right? No. Closed-toed shoes, you guys. It's really hard to stick your feet in ice water. All right, all the precaution stuff is out of the way. That was boring. All right, let's make some candy apples. These are special skewers made for making candy apples. They're thicker than a regular skewer. An apple covered in sugar is heavier than you think, all right? You can also use popsicle sticks, so just don't use those really skinny skewers. You're just gonna drop your apple into your hot sugar. You're gonna remove all of the stems from your apples. I have already done that in preparation. So what you wanna do is lay the apple on the countertop and then poke straight down so that they're semi-straight up and down, so that when we dip it into the candy and set it onto the mat, the sticks are straight up and down. I'm gonna put these apples back into the fridge while we're cooking our sugar so they stay nice and cold. Okay, apples are in the fridge. Let's start to making our candy. This is a nice, heavy-duty, thick-bottomed pot. I can tell because I can literally see how thick this bottom is. And it just feels heavy, right? The heavier the pot you have, the more it's going to consistently heat the bottom. You're not gonna get hot spots. You're not gonna burn your sugar. I got this one at Home Goods for like $12, you guys. So you don't have to spend a lot of money, but this is gonna help you a lot. You're going to have a lid to put on top. You also want to have a pastry brush that you only use for sugar, or a very, very, very clean pastry brush. I've read a lot of things online to say to use a wooden spoon instead of a silicone spoon or a metal spoon, because that can also cause crystallization. I've not experienced that, and I've made a lot of hard candy in my life, but I'm just gonna go traditional style and use a wooden spoon, okay? I'm also gonna add some red food coloring to the candy apples, that's traditional. And I'm also gonna add some cinnamon candy, not traditional, but I'll tell you why. The original recipe calls for a teaspoon of ground up cinnamon, but you can see that in the final candy. But if you didn't have any other option, you could totally use the ground cinnamon. More modern recipes usually use about 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon extract. But I didn't have any cinnamon extract and I could not find any anywhere. But I could find cinnamon candy. This is literally the same stuff. This is hard candy that would be going on the outside of our apples, so I figure this will be just fine. But Liz, Merrick, what if I hate cinnamon? It's fine, okay? You don't have to put the cinnamon in there. You could put all kinds of other flavorings in there that go really well with apples, like almond extract, orange extract, honey instead of corn syrup. That would be really good. So just think what goes good with apples. Would you make cinnamon candy apples or would you go with a different flavor? Please leave me a comment down below and let me know what kind of flavor you would do with your candy apples. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button while you're down there in case you want to see more fun apple content coming your way. All right, first we're gonna add in the sugar. It's a lot of sugar, I know. It is a candy apple, not a diet apple. And then I'm gonna add in my corn syrup, which prevents crystallization. If you don't want to use corn syrup, you can use glucose, you can use honey, you can use maple syrup, you can use agave, and then we're gonna add our water. All right, medium-high. I'm gonna stir just to moisten the sugar, make sure that everything is got water touching it to prevent caramelization, and then I'm gonna stop stirring. The name of the game in candy making is no crystallization. And I'm gonna wash my spoon too so I don't have any sugar granules. Basically, any of these sugar granules, when it touches hot sugar, it can start a chain reaction of more crystallization. All right, now we're gonna put the lid on. So first we gotta wait for this to boil. This will make sure that it boils faster because it's trapping the heat. The condensation starts gathering on top of the lid and it drips down the sides, and that naturally washes down the sides of the pot, kind of making sure all of those sugar crystals get dissolved. But I'm also going to use my pastry brush. But if you didn't have a pastry brush and you just did this part, make sure you do it for 5 minutes and then take the lid off. Okay, so it's been 5 minutes. Now we have to take the lid off or the water will never evaporate. I'm also going to add in my cinnamon candies. Carefully, carefully please. Okay, now we're gonna add the thermometer. So this is gonna stay at 225 for a while. You see how this steam is evaporating? It will not get above 225 until all of the steam evaporates. And then once it does evaporate, you'll notice the bubbles get a little bit less vigorous, things start getting thicker, and then we go from 225 to 300 very quickly. So don't go walking away thinking, oh, I've got time. You don't have time, just chill, just watch. It's gonna take like 30 minutes, so don't stress, but also be like, why is it taking so long? It takes about 30 minutes. You can see that the bubbles are starting to get thicker and gooier, and there's no water evaporating now. So all of the water is gone, and now we are literally just waiting for this to reach 300 degrees so that we can start dipping our apples. I'm actually gonna go grab my candy apples now from the fridge so that I'm ready to dip as soon as this sugar is ready. So I'm watching you. Oh, don't forget, we also have our red food coloring on standby. We're going to add this like maybe at 280. Because the later you add it in there, the more it's gonna keep that red color. And if you add it in the beginning, the red color will cook out. And if you add it at the very end, it could make your sugar a little bit sticky because this is liquid. I'm using ChefMaster Super Red color for my candy apples. I really love this color. It's super vibrant and pretty, and there is a link to this in the description below. So we're heating this to 300 because that is at the stage where sugar is hard crack. And won't be chewy anymore, but it's also not quite caramel, okay? So as soon as this hits 300, I'm going to take it off the heat, put it on this counter protector, remove my thermometer, and immediately start dipping. Okay, we're just gonna let those bubbles settle. Bubbles have settled. I'm gonna tilt my pan carefully, right? I'm gonna take apple number 1, dip, and spin. Look at that. Almost all the way up. Okay, and then we're gonna let it drip off. If you think this is gonna start getting too cold, you'd be wrong. This is gonna stay hot for quite a while. And then we're gonna put it onto the silicone mat, just like that. I've noticed that if I just keep rotating, if I see a bubble, the bubble goes back into the sugar. Should you dip all the way up to the stick? I say no, because I like to see a little bit of that green showing through. But if you do go all the way up to the stick, the chances of the candy sliding down are less. If you're in a really humid area, you definitely want to dip all the way up to the stick, because humidity will start breaking down that sugar outside and making it sticky and sliding, and that's just the nature of sugar. So this is not something you want to make way ahead of time and then leave out in the open air. You want to make it and eat it. So candied apples are one of those things that actually have been around for quite a while. The very first cinnamon candy apples were made by this guy. He was like, I gotta sell more cinnamon candy and people are just not buying it. I know, I'm gonna dip these apples into the cinnamon candy because it makes it look so pretty. And he sold no cinnamon candy, but he sold all of the cinnamon candy apples, and born were the candied apples. That's why they have cinnamon flavoring in them. It seems like that when the sugar cools down to about 270, you have less bubbles and still nice and liquidy. So if you have a infrared thermometer, you can just kind of quickly check that temperature. If your sugar does start getting too solid, you can just put it onto the warmer again for a little bit. Okay, we're gonna do a couple experiments now that we have our beautiful apples. I'm gonna add a little bit of Never Forgotten Designs flash dust just to see what happens. We're mixing. Oh, baby. Oh, so pretty. I love the sparkle. That is like lipstick candy apple red right there. So pretty. Okay, highly recommend the flash dust because that is stunning. I also did a really fun test with black food coloring and didn't use the cinnamon candy just to see how it would turn out, and they look so cool. They're really fun and spooky and kind of creepy looking. Can you tell I'm really into Halloween? The recipe for this is in the description below the video as well. What do we do with the leftover sugar, Liz? Well, we're not gonna waste it, that's for darn sure. I've heated it up on the stove a little bit more so it's nice and liquidy. And I'm just gonna pour it into some silicone molds. You can store this pretty much indefinitely in an airtight container. I'm gonna fill this almost to the top with some water, set it to boil, and then that will get rid of all of the sugar. Okay, success with the candy apples. Now what do we do with these? Highly recommend just eating them because there's moisture inside the apple, and moisture and candy do not like each other. So if you're making these candy apples for a party or something that's not gonna be happening that day, let them cool down and then put them into a container with a lid so that the moisture from the air does not get onto them, and then you can put them into the fridge if you need to, or you can let them cool down and wrap them in cellophane if you're gonna be doing like individual treats. Okay, now let's talk about how to eat them, because this sugar is actually very sharp. So my recommendation is to actually cut it with a knife first so that you have something to bite into and it kind of cracks the surface of the sugar. Or you can dip slices like this, which I think looks super cute, like a little lollipop. And just make sure that your sugar is nice and thin. You're dipping at 270, 280 so that you're not getting a super thick outer coating. Okay, let's cut one of these bad boys. 1, 2, 3. Oh! Ooh, that was really fun. I want to do more. Let's chop all of them. Tell me that doesn't look so pretty. Ooh, look at the cracks. Mmm, that's really good. Shouldn't believe me. It's good. The cinnamon is not too much cinnamon at all. It is a little bit hard to bite through the sugar. I feel like this one's a little bit thicker. This is ones that we did towards the end because it has the glitter in it. I'm gonna see what the other one, the one that we did earlier, if it has a difference in thickness. Mmm. Yeah, much thinner. Oh, really good. Okay, 1908, you know what you're doing. You did that. You made a candy apple. Congratulations. Hopefully you enjoyed this tutorial and you want to check out some of my other delicious fall recipes, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.